Hello again. Today's footage is a little bit of an oddball. Um, for Christmas, received a wireless winch remote from Harbor Freight. One of the two things that I want to change about our dump trailer is the fact that the cord for the remote or for the control is way too short, so you can't really do any kind of tailgating with it, where you drive forward and it dumps a nice thin layer of gravel everywhere. So one of the ways to fix that was either to try and find a longer remote cord, which would then have to be strung from the trailer all the way up, maybe through the bed or around the side of the bed or something, into the cab so you can control it, and then you have to worry about driving over it and dropping it and whatever. The other way to fix that is to add a wireless control. So what I'm doing here is making a harness for the receiver of the wireless remote so that I can put that in the dump trailer's toolbox, so I'll be able to use it. What I'm showing you is that one of the lines I needed to build a little Y adapter so I could plug, just in case I ever need to, I wanted to be able to plug both the wired control and the wireless control into place. I've heard in other people's videos that there's a potential for feedback. So my solution to that is that they'll never be connected at the same time. Here I'm trying to modify that initial harness because I didn't have any shrink wrap on it, and I didn't have any solder, sorry, and I wanted to solder it, and for some reason I spaced the fact that I never use crimp connections. I always crimp them and solder them. I guess it's just been a while since I've worked on anything automotive and kind of spaced that, but I just don't trust crimp connections. So I'm removing the shielding from the crimp connections so that I can then solder all of them. But anyway, the solution to the potential feedback is that the wired controller is unplugged from so it's got a break in it that you can unplug it. And then when I'm not using the wireless controller for a safety feature, I'm actually disconnecting the positive. I need to get a switch of some form so I don't have to undo the battery terminal every time. This particular battery actually is intended to have secondary connections. So it's got the main charging battery terminal, and then it's got a small secondary bolt terminal. And that worked out pretty well to just wire it onto that. This trailer, actually, I got pretty lucky with the connections. So the up controller in the trailer box on the up solenoid is blue. The down solenoid's wire is brown. Then obviously positive is red, which is pretty common, and black is negative. The wiring for this particular wireless remote turned out to be in is blue, out is brown, and then there's positive and negative. So, oh, sorry, knocked over the camera there. So now I've got all of those little shields removed, and I'm gonna. I had the idea that I wanted to be able to unplug the positive cable. In the wiring, it's actually a yellow cable. Sorry, I got that wrong a second ago apparently. So I've got red tape marking that as the positive. But I wanted to be able to try and unplug this, so I actually got a set of the little spade bits to try and do that, but it turns out they actually are a little bit too tight, so it made it awkward to try and unplug it, and I didn't want to hit my knuckles on anything when it finally comes undone, or damage, you know, breaking the wires over time or whatever. So like I said, I need to get a switch of some form, so I can just reach in there and flip the switch. But the process here is pretty simple. I mean, it's basic soldering. You generally you'll get a better connection, or you can sometimes get a better connection if you tin the copper first. And since I already had some of these that were crimped, I didn't worry too much about it. There's no electronics actually attached to them, so I just used the heat from melting the first dab of solder on the one side of the wire, and then let it flow through the connection, and then just make sure that I get it on all around, and there we go. Then I'm just setting them on a wet towel because I couldn't find my sponge for some reason, but that's okay. So anyway, once these are all hooked up, it was a surprisingly simple connection to make, getting this installed. The only real challenge was the positive wire and the ground wire are... I didn't have any actual circle connections, so I used a Y and just had to bend it a little bit. I was trying to get this all done in kind of a hurry because I didn't want to go shopping. I was being a little bit lazy from that aspect, but also I just didn't want to spend money on it until I knew whether it was going to work or not. So that resulted in just hurrying through, and I made sure everything has good connections. When I get the switch for the positive, then I'll just redo the connections at the same time, because at that point they can be permanent, and I'll get some circle connectors instead of the paddle. Sorry, I don't actually know what they're really called. I've never really had to look them up by name or anything. I just walk in the store, look at them, oh, that's what I need, and grab them and leave. So, anyway, it is that, like I said, it's a pretty quick, simple solder job. Now I just gotta put some heat shrink on these. I don't have a heat gun, so I just have always used a lighter. Unless I'm out in a windy scenario, then it's never been a problem. But I'm gonna just get all of these so they're as protected as possible. The biggest challenge I faced with this particular project was the fact that I ended up doing this on the coldest day of the season. So it was pretty cold out there while I was trying to get everything put together. But I mean, you'll see once I get all of these finished being built, then I mean, it only took a couple of minutes to make all of the connections and test it, and now I have a wireless dump trailer. So that has been an amazing I don't know why they don't build the trailer that way just to start. It's not that much of a cost difference to add this feature. I mean, I bought this at Harbor Freight for $40. Now, it is Harbor Freight, so who knows what quality it's really going to end up being, or how long it's going to end up lasting. But I know I found the official wireless remote was like $160, and it wasn't in stock, and it wasn't available to order. So yeah, it's just one of those things where it makes no sense. This is one of those Y connectors that I was telling you about, yoke connectors. The shrink wrap to get it around the connector was going to be too big to actually shrink down tight, so I ended up just doing those ones with some electrical tape. And then I added a little bit of colored tape to each wire just because I have it. So anyway, the second feature that I mentioned earlier about that I want to change, I actually have a tarp. You'll see it in the coming up video. I've got a tarp that I use to cover the loads when I'm doing things that can blow around, and it works okay. I've got it permanently basically tied to the front, and then I roll it up, and the string, the paracord that I use at the back to tie it in place, I just use that to kind of wrap around it and tie it in place onto the front of the trailer. It works okay, and it does its job. The challenge is it is just a cheap regular tarp, so eventually it's gonna get damaged and wear out, because that's just what tarps do. The plastic tarps are just always a guaranteed fail point for everything, which, since we have to do a trip about once every 3 months to take our trash to the dump, works out really well, because then I just take the next tarp that's been destroyed in the winds and tie it down over the trash, and then I have my trash covered as I head to the dump. And then I just untie it, and dump it, and let it go. It can just be part of the trash. So anyway, that's one of the things that I want to upgrade is getting an actual dump trailer net. Rolling, it's got a bar that it rolls up on and locks it in place, but then you just crank it and roll it up, and it's just always stowed. It's there. It's easy. It's fast. It's made of canvas instead of plastic, so it will last a lot longer. And I can actually use just grommets along down the sides of it to quickly bungee it to the trailer so that it stays nice and tight everywhere, which will help ensure that it lasts as long as possible. But we're just about done here. I just wanted to make sure that everything was nice and secure, because at this point I've decided, I came to the conclusion that I wasn't going to be able to easily disconnect that the way that I was planning, so I just wrapped the whole thing. But here we're going to install it, so I actually set my phone up on the tailgate of the pickup truck so I could get some footage of it. I would like to have had this footage down, angled down, so you could actually see what I'm working on, but I'm just taking the nut off of the battery post and then connecting the terminals, and then the brown and blue just literally clipped onto the solenoid connectors, so that it really was not hard to install it at all. Unplug the brown and connect the Y, and then plug the blue in, undo a couple of nuts, put the black and red onto the battery, and tighten those nuts, and that was it. It is a little bit awkward to get that nut, because I probably should have grabbed a socket, but I keep this wrench actually in the toolbox because I've got some U-bolt setups for when I put rails on the trailer. That way I can tighten their nuts down. pretty much it. So you can see here, I've got the connector for the hardwired remote, which is this guy. We've got the receiver. We've got our ground, we've got our positive, we've got our up, and we've got our down. So now theoretically, if I've done everything right, in goes up, and out goes down. And I now have a wireless dump trailer, so I can sit in the truck. And the most important thing for me when I'm wanting to do this is tailgating. So that was one of the features we did specifically look for, was the ability to hinge the top and unlatch the bottom, hinge at the top with a latch at the bottom. So I can pull these pins off of both sides, and then this lower chain controls the length that it can open, so I can do different size material. But then I can drive and spread as I drive, and it'll spread, you know, a layer as you go. So, for instance, if I want to be sitting in the driver's seat, and dump, I'm not going to go very high because it's not attached, obviously, but I mean, if it'll pump that far, it'll pump all the way. So we're good to go. Now, for the moment, I'm actually going to just lock it up and leave the remote connected, because there's nobody within range of the remote that's around here, and I'm going to be getting gravel this week, so we'll see how well it actually holds that charge, I guess. But there you have it. So again, just quick recap is, on this particular trailer, the brown happened to be the down connector, the blue happened to be the up wiring, red is positive, black is negative, and that's it. If I were using this with a powered down, then the wiring gets a little bit more difficult, and you have to use some diodes to make sure that you're only powering. No, actually I take that back. I'd still only be triggering the solenoids like they are, so anyway, that's where we're at. That's what I got.